Did you know that the Titanic, considered unsinkable, disappeared on its maiden voyage, taking over 1,500 lives with it? This majestic British transatlantic, operated by the White Star Line, was a marvel of early 20th century engineering, measuring over 270 meters in length and featuring luxuries that rivaled the palaces of the time. From Southampton to New York, the Titanic carried a fascinating mix of passengers, from wealthy magnates to immigrants seeking a new beginning in America. Despite its tragic end, the legacy of the Titanic endures in popular culture and maritime history. In this video, we will explore 15 iconic photographs that capture the grandeur of the Titanic before its fateful encounter with the iceberg, revealing secrets and details you might not have known.
Captain! Sir!
Number 15. The Titanic Pool. The Titanic's pool, an innovative and luxurious feature for its time, symbolized the opulence and exclusivity that defined the transatlantic. This photograph reveals the care put into creating a space where luxury and comfort were combined for the first-class passengers. Located on Deck F, the Titanic's pool was one of the most exclusive facilities on the ship, accessible only to first-class passengers. With a constant depth of 6 feet, the pool was filled with heated seawater, offering a unique and invigorating bathing experience in the middle of the Atlantic. The schedules and fees for its use reflected the social norms of the time. Men enjoyed a free period early in the morning, while women and children had to pay for each use. The cost to swim was about 25 cents, a considerable sum at the time, which included the use of a bathing suit. Colonel Archibald Gracie, a first-class passenger, described the pool as a revitalizing experience and had planned to return before the tragedy. He survived the sinking, leaving a valuable testimony of this facility. Although the pool did not survive the sinking, its memory endures as a symbol of the opulence and innovations that defined the Titanic, highlighting how every corner of the ship was designed to offer a unique experience. The Titanic's pool was not only a luxurious attraction, but also a reflection of the technological and social advancements of its time. Its memory, immortalized in stories and photographs, transports us to an era of grand ambitions, which tragically contrasts with the ship's fate. Number 14. The Titanic Gym. Among the Titanic's innovations, its gym stands out as an unusual space for a transatlantic. This photograph reveals a place where luxury and technology met, offering first-class passengers a setting to exercise and have fun in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Located near the grand staircase on the boat deck, the Titanic's gym reflected the White Star Line's ambition to offer unmatched experiences. Decorated with white-painted oak panels, the interior featured generous lighting and tiled floors. On the opposite wall, an elaborate carved oak installation displayed the transatlantic route and a cross-section of an Olympic-class ship. This room not only offered stationary bikes, rowing machines, and punching bags, but also curiosities like electric camels, devices that simulated the sensation of riding an animal. Passengers could purchase a ticket for $1 to access the gym under the supervision of T.W. Macaulay, the ship's physical educator. Use of these facilities was subject to gender and age segregation, reflecting the social norms of the time. The gym was not just an extravagant extra, it symbolized technological optimism and the desire to offer the latest in maritime leisure. Tragically, on the night of the sinking, Macaulay remained at his post, perishing with the Titanic, turning this space into a silent testament to the disaster. The vision of the Titanic gym, with its modern machines and refined atmosphere, evokes an era of unlimited confidence in progress. Its memory, frozen in these photographs, painfully contrasts with the fate of the transatlantic, underlining the fragile balance between human innovation and the uncontrollable forces of the sea. Number 13. The Titanic life jackets. The Titanic's life jackets, though well-intentioned, were not enough to prevent many of the tragic deaths. This photograph, taken by a passenger who disembarked before the sinking, shows these essential items that, paradoxically, became symbols of desperation and sacrifice. The Titanic was equipped with life jackets for all passengers and crew members made of canvas and filled with cork to ensure buoyancy. Although this design met the standards of the time, its flimsy construction and considerable weight made them dangerous in certain circumstances. Many passengers who jumped into the water with life jackets did not survive due to the impact of the fall, which caused serious injuries, loss of consciousness, or in some cases, fatal neck fractures. The tragedy revealed deficiencies in the design and functionality of life jackets, inspiring changes in materials and maritime safety standards decades later. Interestingly, some of these life jackets have survived to this day as historical relics. Despite their limitations, collectors have paid exorbitant sums for them, such as one life jacket that fetched $119,000 at auction. These artifacts not only represent a crucial chapter in the Titanic's history, but also serve as a reminder of human fragility in the face of maritime disasters. The history of the Titanic's life jackets underscores how the technological advances of the time, though impressive, were not always enough to ensure safety. Each of these life jackets connects us to the lives they tried to protect and to the lessons that arose from the tragedy. Number 12. The child on the Titanic deck. In one of the most poignant images of the Titanic, a 6-year-old boy plays innocently with a top on the deck, capturing the essence of life aboard just before the tragedy. The photograph, taken on April 11, 1912, shows Robert Douglas Spedden, a young first-class passenger, enjoying a moment of joy as his top spins on the Titanic's upper deck. Robert was traveling with his family from Southampton to New York after a family trip to Algeria. Dressed in elegant clothes befitting his status, the boy reflects the mix of luxury and normalcy that characterized the ship, where passengers from different backgrounds coexisted in its splendid facilities. Robert's smile and concentration on his play contrast dramatically with the tragic fate that awaited them. This frozen moment not only humanizes the tragedy of the Titanic, but also highlights the diversity of lives affected by the disaster. Moreover, the photograph serves as a visual reminder of lost innocence and human fragility in the face of relentless natural forces. Robert's innocence, in the face of the impending disaster, humanizes the tragedy of the Titanic, reminding us of the individual lives affected by this historical event. His personal story adds an emotional dimension that deepens our understanding of the human impact of the sinking. Number 11. Third-class passengers. An image we don't often associate with the Titanic is that of its third-class passengers, or steerage, who, despite their more humble status, enjoyed notably better conditions aboard this transatlantic than many had left behind in Europe. The photograph shows several third-class passengers interacting in a space designed for them. Communal areas with shared bathrooms, cabins that housed up to 4 people, and a collective dining room where meals were prepared on the ship, an unusual feature on other ships of the time. These conditions, considered modest by the Titanic's luxury standards, were, however, a significant improvement for many immigrants who had lived in more precarious environments. Single men were typically placed in the bow, while women, families, and children were housed at the stern, enjoying more spacious cabins. Although they did not have access to the opulence of the upper decks or recreational facilities like the Titanic gym, these travelers could gather in a general room to chat, read, play cards, and hold small parties. For many, the Titanic was not just a means of transportation, but a symbol of renewed hope, the promise of a new life in America. Unfortunately, this promise would not be fulfilled for most, as only 25% of third-class passengers survived the tragedy, highlighting the inequality of opportunity even in the midst of disaster. This image of third-class passengers between modesty and hope reminds us that the Titanic was a social microcosm. Their stories, often overlooked, enrich our understanding of the tragedy, showing that behind each face was an aspiration for a future that was tragically cut short. Number 10. The construction of the Titanic. The construction of the Titanic was a feat of engineering and ambition, designed by the White Star Line to create the largest and most luxurious transatlantic ship in history. With a team of thousands of workers, the Titanic rose as a symbol of opulence and maritime power of the time. Construction of the Titanic began on March 31, 1909, at the Harland and Wolff shipyards in Belfast, where its twin ship, the Olympic, was also being built. This ambitious project represented a significant challenge for the shipyards, as none of them had attempted to build ships of such magnitude. To carry out this monumental task, 3 dry docks were demolished and 2 new, the largest of their time, were constructed. Over 14,000 workers were employed, and the framing of the Titanic took over a year to complete. The final sheathing was finished in October 1910, and the ship began to be outfitted with the luxurious elements that would make it famous. Despite the quality of its materials, some scientists have suggested that the steel plates used were more brittle than expected in cold conditions, contributing to the structural damage when the Titanic collided with the iceberg. Work was carried out under dangerous conditions, with inadequate safety equipment, resulting in numerous injuries and deaths. The total number of victims during the construction and outfitting reached 8 workers, a tragedy that would mark the beginning of a chain of fatal events culminating in the Titanic's sinking. The construction of the Titanic was an unprecedented achievement in naval history, but it was also marked by tragedy and the inherent risks of such a monumental project. The magnitude of its construction and design errors highlight the complexity of its story, which ended in a fatal destiny. Number 9. The iceberg that sank the Titanic. The iceberg, the silent protagonist of the Titanic's sinking, has a fascinating backstory. A photograph taken 2 days before that might have predicted the fateful encounter. Captain W. Wood of the SS Etonian captured an impressive black and white photograph of a massive iceberg on April 12, 1912, just 2 days before the Titanic's collision. This image not only shows the magnitude of the iceberg, but also includes exact coordinates that almost perfectly match the location of the impact in the North Atlantic. The meticulous notation by Captain Wood and the similarity to witness sketches make this photograph an intriguing piece of Titanic history. Wood, passionate about photography, had noticed the prominence of this iceberg on his route and decided to document it, unknowingly capturing a crucial moment for one of the most famous maritime disasters. When revealing the photograph in New York, Wood added an additional layer of mystery and predestination to the tragic event, suggesting an eerie coincidence. This fact raises questions about human foresight and the inevitability of destiny, adding a near-prophetic dimension to the Titanic's story. The coincidence between Captain Wood's photograph and the iceberg that sank the Titanic raises questions about fate and human foresight. This historical detail not only enriches the disaster narrative, but also invites reflection on the ignored signs before the tragedy. Number 8. The first-class smoking room. This historical photograph of the Titanic's first-class smoking room shows an exclusive space where male passengers gathered to relax, smoke, and enjoy a sophisticated environment. Although tragedy is not visible in this image, the lounge witnessed poignant moments during the sinking. In this stunning image, we see the Titanic's first-class smoking room, a luxurious retreat designed for male passengers. This room served as a nighttime gathering place where first-class men met to discuss business, play cards, and enjoy cigarettes and drinks. The room was decorated with intricately inlaid dark mahogany panels, and the walls featured carved details that gave it an elegant and refined atmosphere. Stained glass windows and backlit alcoves provided a soft glow, enhancing the room's opulence. The floor, covered in blue and red linoleum tiles, and the ceiling adorned with plaster medallions completed the sophisticated decor. At the center of the room, a painting by Norman Wilkinson, Approach to the New World, stood above the fireplace. This room was also a meeting place for professional players, including at least 4 well-known individuals on board. During the Titanic's sinking, just before the tragedy struck, this space witnessed emotional moments. According to some accounts, at 2:05 a.m., the players said their goodbyes, and some, like Major Butt and Francis Davis Millett, left the lounge to face their fate. Others, like William Stead, remained seated, seemingly calm, but unable to escape what was to come. This photograph of the smoking room reflects the luxury and calm before the disaster. Though the passengers in this image had no way of knowing it, the room witnessed the final peaceful moments of many before the Titanic's tragedy overtook them. Number 7. The launch of the Titanic. The launch of the Titanic into the water was a historic event that attracted over 100,000 people. In the presence of dignitaries and an enthusiastic crowd, the ship slid down the slipway, marking the beginning of its journey toward the tragic fate that would make it one of the most infamous disasters in history. At 12:15 p.m. on May 31, 1911, the Titanic was launched into the water at the Harland and Wolff shipyards in Belfast. The event was witnessed by a crowd of over 100,000 people, including prominent dignitaries such as J. Pierpont Morgan and J. Bruce Ismay, who watched the launch from a specially constructed stand. Robert Falconer Keith, the chief shipwright at the yard, released the hydraulic triggers holding the Titanic in place, allowing the massive transatlantic liner to slide into the River Lagan. To ensure a smooth slide, 22 tons of soap and tallow were applied to the slipway, facilitating the launch. In keeping with White Star Line tradition, the Titanic was not officially christened with champagne, a common practice at the time. After the launch, the ship was towed to a dock to continue outfitting and construction. Over the following months, the engines, funnels, superstructure, and interior were installed. Although the Titanic was designed to be the largest ship in the world, its construction was delayed due to design changes and repairs to the Olympic, its twin, which had suffered a collision in September 1911. The Titanic passed its sea trials and was deemed fit for service, with no one suspecting that its destiny was marked by tragedy. The launch of the Titanic was a grand celebration, but also marked the beginning of a journey toward a fatal destiny. Despite the grandeur of the project, delays in construction and design changes would make the Titanic a symbol of the inevitability of tragedy. Number 6. The second-class dining room. The Titanic's second-class dining room was an elegant yet functional space designed to accommodate up to 394 passengers. While it didn't reach the sophistication of first class, this dining room offered a pleasant experience with music and a cozy atmosphere, becoming a place where passengers could connect. Located on Deck D, the Titanic's second-class dining room could seat up to 394 passengers at once. Long mahogany tables lined the room, creating an elegant atmosphere, complemented by upholstered chairs in crimson tones. To ensure stability during rough seas, both the tables and rotating chairs were firmly bolted to the floor. Meals in this room were prepared in the first and second-class kitchens, which shared space with the first-class kitchen on the same level. During dinner, a music band entertained passengers, creating a festive and sophisticated ambience. The music remained soft, allowing passengers to enjoy company and conversation while savoring their meals. Despite its elegance, the second-class dining room had certain limitations, such as the lack of trays to serve passengers. This, along with some operational difficulties, didn't prevent the dining room from becoming a popular social gathering spot. Passengers enjoyed the opportunity to socialize and share a high-quality culinary experience, albeit with less opulence than in first class. The second-class dining room on the Titanic, though less luxurious than the first-class dining room, offered a cozy and elegant environment for passengers. This space became a key meeting place, showing that the quality of the experience doesn't always depend on social status. Number 5. The insufficient lifeboats. This photograph, taken by Reverend F.M. Brown, offers a prophetic view of the Titanic's bridge and one of its lifeboats. Through this image, we see one of the ship's most tragic flaws, the insufficient number of lifeboats, which contributed to the high death toll. The Titanic carried 20 lifeboats, which theoretically met the requirements of the Merchant Shipping Act of 1894. However, this number was insufficient for the more than 2,000 people aboard, as it wasn't designed to accommodate the entire crew and passengers. The Titanic, weighing nearly 50,000 tons, exceeded the size of the ships to which these laws applied, and authorities relied on the ship's 16 watertight compartments to ensure its buoyancy. Despite this confidence, lifeboats were launched with fewer passengers than their capacity allowed. For instance, the first lifeboat to depart had room for 65 people, but only carried 25. Additionally, no lifeboat or fire drills were conducted before the sinking. Ironically, a drill had been scheduled for the same day as the disaster, but was cancelled by Captain Smith. The Titanic's sinking served as a devastating reminder of the need for better maritime safety planning. Just 2 years later, the International Convention for the Safety of Life at Sea, SOLAS, introduced new regulations mandating lifeboats for everyone aboard. The lifeboat shortage aboard the Titanic resulted in an unnecessary tragedy that changed the course of maritime safety history. Today, the lessons learned from that disaster have shaped current regulations, ensuring that every passenger has a chance of survival in an emergency. Number 4. The compromised hull. The construction of the Titanic's hull was a milestone in engineering, but the ship's design and structural integrity were questioned by an Irish journalist who suggested that a coal fire weakened the structure before the maiden voyage, possibly contributing to the disaster. The Titanic's hull, made up of more than 3 million iron and steel rivets, was an engineering feat. However, its design included a double bottom for added strength, while the sides were a single layer. It was also divided into 15 sealable sections. A recent theory proposed by Irish journalist Senyon Malini suggests that a spontaneous fire in one of Titanic's massive coal bunkers may have compromised the hull's integrity weeks before the maiden voyage. According to Malini, the extreme heat from the fire would have weakened a critical section of the hull, leaving the ship vulnerable to the iceberg collision. Although this theory has sparked debate, some experts consider it more plausible than other explanations, such as a German submarine attack or a mythical curse. However, many still believe the iceberg impact was the main cause of the sinking. The theory of a coal fire presents a new perspective on the causes of the disaster. While the iceberg impact remains the most widely accepted explanation, the possibility that a fire weakened the hull adds an intriguing layer to the mystery of the sinking, suggesting that structural failures may have preceded the crash. Number 3. The first-class reading and writing room. The Titanic's first-class reading and writing room was a serene refuge, especially for ladies to relax and write after dinner. Despite its elegant design and offered amenities, this space didn't become as popular as expected, leaving behind some remnants that still intrigue us today. This elegant room was located on the port side of the Titanic, just off the passageway connecting the grand staircase to the salon. Originally intended as a peaceful retreat for first-class ladies who could retire after dinner to read, write letters, or simply unwind. Although men were also allowed, it was primarily a ladies' retreat. The room was divided into 2 sections, a spacious main area and a small alcove with seating to the right, separated by a door with allée of berth-style windows. The high windows, over 3 meters tall, let in abundant natural light, enhanced by rose-colored silk curtains. The room's interior was done in the Georgian style, featuring intricate plasterwork, elegant paneling, fluted columns, and a white marble fireplace. Potted plants and crystal chandeliers added a refined decorative touch. Despite its elegance, the room wasn't widely used. Passengers didn't fully understand its purpose, which led to limited activity in the space. After the sinking, the remnants of the room, such as a yellow sofa and a pink chair, were found on the shores of Newfoundland, suggesting that some passengers attempted to use the furniture as makeshift rafts. Although the reading and writing room was designed to offer relaxation and cultural engagement, it never gained the popularity intended. The few remnants found on the shores of Newfoundland now offer a somber glimpse into the fate of these luxurious spaces during the disaster. Number 2. The captain and the purser of the Titanic. In this photo, taken 3 days before the disaster, we see Captain Edward J. Smith with purser Hugh Walter McElroy. Both would become victims of the tragic sinking, which left a deep mark on history. This image captures one of the last moments of calm before the storm. Captain Edward J. Smith, experienced and revered in his field, was the commander of the Titanic during its maiden voyage. 3 days before the disaster, he conducted his usual routine, inspecting the ship and holding a religious service. Despite the possibility of encountering an iceberg, the captain maintained the full speed of 22 knots, trusting that his crew could react in time if an obstacle was encountered. Purser Hugh Walter McElroy, who was responsible for the ship's administrative management, was also part of the team that experienced the Titanic's final moments. On the fateful night of April 14, 1912, as temperatures dropped to freezing levels, the Titanic struck an iceberg. After the impact, Captain Smith was informed by Thomas Andrews, the ship's designer, that the Titanic was doomed. At 2:20 a.m., the ship sank, and the captain was last seen on the bridge, where he reportedly died while attempting to help save passengers. While some claimed Captain Smith saved a child, his body was never found, and his decisions have been the subject of controversy and analysis for over a century. Captain Smith's figure is remembered by many as heroic, while others criticize his decision to maintain speed. However, analyzing his actions, along with those of Purser McElroy, highlights the errors and human limitations in the face of an inevitable tragedy. Number 1. The first-class dining room. The Titanic's first-class dining room was a masterpiece of architecture and opulence. Able to accommodate over 500 people, this distinguished space offered a luxurious dining experience with a menu rivaling those of the finest palaces, creating an exclusive atmosphere for the wealthiest passengers. The first-class dining room was the largest ever built on a ship, spanning the entire width of the ocean liner with an impressive length of 114 feet. The room was decorated in white tones, creating a relaxing and enjoyable atmosphere. Passengers enjoyed exquisite menus, including lobster, Egyptian quail, caviar, and fresh fruit, all prepared by renowned chefs to satisfy the most refined palates. Meals were a major social event with strict schedules. Breakfast from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m., lunch from 1 p.m. to 2:30 p.m., and dinner from 7 p.m. to 8:15 p.m. To remind passengers of mealtimes, the ship's bugler, Peter W. Fletcher, played the iconic roast beef of Old England. During dinner, the dining room was a parade of elegance. Men wore formal suits, and women wore the latest fashion, complemented with fine jewelry and exotic perfumes. The atmosphere was enhanced by a live orchestra, creating a serene environment while passengers enjoyed their meals. The first-class dining room on the Titanic was more than just a place to eat. It represented the pinnacle of opulence aboard the ship. The dining experience was one of the luxuries that defined this ocean liner, and it remains a symbol of the grandeur and the tragedy that surrounded it. Throughout this visual journey, we've explored 15 iconic photographs that capture the grandeur and humanity of the Titanic before its tragic sinking. From the innocence of a child on the deck to the luxurious first-class lounges, each image offers a unique window into the past, revealing the stories and details that made the Titanic a maritime legend. These photographs not only document a historic moment, but also preserve the lives and dreams of those who traveled aboard. They invite us to reflect on the fragility of life and the persistent fascination the Titanic exerts on our collective imagination. Which of these photographs impacted you the most, and why? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel to discover more fascinating stories from maritime history and other unforgettable events. Thank you for joining us on this journey.